it's hard to have original Star Wars thoughts. Everything about Star Wars has been broken down and looked at and analyzed a million times over. But this isn't necessarily an original idea, but out of nowhere, I just thought a thought. What is the greatest Star Wars lightsaber ignition?
Ooh,
if you think
very specific, okay,
it's very specific, but that is such a great moment of Star Wars. Very specific. There's nothing like it in any other movie. When a Jedi pulls out or a Sith pulls out a lightsaber and lights it up, it's a combination of sound, combination of sight. There's a lot that factors into what makes a great lightsaber ignition.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
This is a good, obviously I thought of it, so I've had time to think. But you two gentlemen, it's one of those things where you got to think about the different movies and like the different moments and what it means. And we can just kind of go off the cuff here, but we can kind of talk about different ones and which ones stick. Do either of you have certain ones off immediately that feel like this great moment of Star Wars?
This is a great point because the drawing of a weapon is like there's a lot of movies where it's like it happens, but it's not about the weapon. It's about like, oh, these two guys are about to fight. But with a lightsaber battle, it's like there's so much more significance because of how fucking dope and meaningful a lightsaber is to individual characters. So I love this idea because I don't think there's any other weapon in the history of cinema of entertainment that has as much meaning and as much aura as a lightsaber does.
It's so unique to each character.
Yeah, exactly. Like every character has their own unique vibe, and their lightsaber means different things to them. So off the bat, I mean, so you have Luke drawing it against Vader. No, that in episode 6. I mean that might be my number one that gives me goosebumps just thinking about it. Anakin pulling the as we were texting earlier, Anakin pulling the saber on the children is insane. It's insane that happened.
The child's reaction where they're they do one of those.
Yeah, they
goes out. They're like
they actually jolt back. It's so fucking dark. It's so dark that it's crazy that George Lucas put it in there.
It's one of those in the theater, and this is one thing that if you weren't in the theater,
totally,
but it's one of those Star Wars theater moments when it happened, you could hear a pin drop. Like it was terrifying, and something that was so unlike anything we've ever seen up in those prequel Star Wars movies. That moment will always stick with me as the moment that you just lost your breath.
Well, which was complete. Like they raised the bar so high in episode 1 when Tarkin pushes a button and destroys the entire planet. Like we're talking about he murdered some young.
Episode 4, not episode 1.
Oh yeah, sorry. Episode 4.
We're gonna get comments about, oh my god, you're such an idiot. It's episode 1. How dare you, Jason?
It's not Jason's fault. Jason was born in 1965 when he was born. First.
Jason was there when Oppenheimer pushed the button for the real detonation of the planet, so he had experience with this. I'm sorry, Jason. I'm sorry.
That's a guy. Okay, yep. That'll pick apart my opinion. I'm okay. But my favorite to wield is probably either Darth Maul, the duel. That one was Grievous, the first time whipping out like 6 lightsabers at the same time. Yoda actually getting to see his little lightsaber when the first Dooku. Like those are like the first 3 that came to mind. And then old school Luke getting the lightsaber out of the ice and slashing the Wampa while he's upside down. I remember as a kid that being probably one of the coolest, but it might be the Grievous one because that was like so just like mind blowing. Like what 6? And then they start spinning around too. Shit.
With a couple ones like the Dooku, just because the way that Christopher Lee spins his fist downward when he ignites it upwards and it spins it, it's just such a classy. That's a classy guy right there.
It's
That dude has
Shakespearean way of doing it. Yeah.
very Shakespearean. Yoda, when he pulls it out and he's facing down with Sidious, and he just pushes it right there. He's staring him in the eyes. Fucking great touch. You don't see the ignition, but the slow-mo nightmare sequence with Luke Skywalker on Dagobah, when Darth Vader comes out of Dagobah and you hear it, and then he just pulls it up. Love that one.
I'm trying to think in Obi-Wan, that final battle between Luke and Vader in the series one, if there was any cool, because I remember the lightsaber colors on each other's faces and things like that. Like that was a big part of that battle, but I can't remember. There's a cool.
Wait, are you're talking about the show?
Yeah, the show.
Fan fiction, Jason. Fan fiction. That doesn't
the
count.
only good thing out of that entire show was that final scene.
You're not wrong, but it is. If you watch that sequence, the cinematography is so dog shit compared to the cinematography we get in the prequels and the regular Star Wars movies.
I mean, that is it's I'd say that's just a lesser version of I can't say I believe I'm saying so anything. Attack of the Clones, but it's basically a lesser version of Attack of the Clones, because when Dooku is fighting Anakin and they're fighting each other, it's red and blue flashing across their faces.
Yeah. That's right.
Before he chops his hand off, and so it's kind of the same thing, but I just think Attack of the Clones is just better. How can I possibly say that? How can I say that about anything?
The cinematography was good. Like, you can criticize the prequels all day long for writing and acting and all that stuff. The cinematography of the fight sequences is as good as you will see in almost any movie, because you see both characters most of the time in a wide shot with two characters and their lightsaber abilities, and choreography where the actors actually did the work, and it's not just shaky cams Pirates of the Caribbean, just like, oh, what's going on here? They did a really good job of that, and that's why those lightsaber sequences are so memorable, and they're also few and far between for the most part, other than when in the second movie in Attack of the Clones, when all the Jedi pull out their lightsabers, and it's like, all right, well, whatever. But it is well done in that sequence.
Episode 1, where they're on the Trade Federation ship and they're like trying to get in the door where the guys are behind it, and they just have their lightsabers in the door, just holding it there while everything turns to slag. It's like,
oh, it just melts. Oh, the Obi. That's like in episode 1. It's the first. It's when not Obi-Wan, but Qui-Gon is melting the door.
And
that actually is a cool moment.
It's like before this, we'd only seen the original trilogy lightsaber battles. Nothing of them using lightsabers for anything other than, like fighting. So it was cool to see like, okay, these Jedi use them for like tools to cut open a door or things like that.
I do.
Go ahead.
Well, just that is the first theatrical moment that sticks in my mind, where it's when I was 9 years old and I'm watching this and nothing makes sense. Trade Federation and treaties, and none of that makes sense. But the first thing that made sense is they put the tear gas, or they put the poison gas in the room. They turn on the lightsabers, and then they turn the lightsabers off. They come out of the shadows. They attack the droids. But when they're trying to open the door and he sticks it through and it's melting the door, and Qui-Gon sticks it through, and then it's the epic music and it's the epic John Williams score, and it cuts to what's the guy's name? Newt Gunray.
Yeah.
And he says, "This is impossible." And then it's the first time we hear the Force music as he's like holding it and he's like calculating. That is a really cool Star Wars moment. I love that. I don't give a fuck. Like, that's a really cool moment of just like, look at him, Taken. Or the prequel to Taken, just being like, I am a Jedi with a set of skills. I'm going to open this door.
I will go to battle for episode 1. Like me and Mimi just rewatched it like last week, and it holds up so well. Like it has some flaws, but like the pod racing and just the final battles and in the beginning, and stuff, it is a good movie. Like it holds up far better than some of the other Star Wars movies.
I don't know if it's a good movie, but it does. The practicality of a lot of the effects is mind blowing. When you watch it, there's so many things. The beginning of it, the spaceship blowing up, the pod racing. There's a lot of things about that movie that, even though they started incorporating mass amounts of CGI and green screens, there's a lot of
there's no puppetry in the first one. Yeah, it's all CG.
Oh yeah, because even Yoda is
Well,
You know,
Yoda originally was a puppet, and then the remaster of Episode 1 made him CGI. But in the original theatrical release, he was a puppet.
Something that's really cool about Episode 1 lightsaber fight, the Duel of the Fates, no CG. That's all choreography. You see them do some flips and jumps and stuff, but it's all practical effects. That is 100% practical. You do not get one.
Mull in half.
No, he really cut him in half. That was a crazy.
Whoa! Murder on the set, rust.
No, they had a man with no legs, and then they put him on top of fake legs, and then they had him fall
with no top.